let's move on to our further discussion. And the hot topic that is trending these days is definitely the TCS being levied onto your foreign transactions, where the Finance Ministry has amended the rules under the FEMA Act to bring the international credit card spending under the Liberalised Remittance Scheme, that is LRS. To put simply, that the credit card spending in a foreign currency will now be a part of LRS annual limit of $2.5 lakh per person. But further, it will be subject to the tax collected at source, that is TCS, which was earlier 5% and now has been raised to 20%, and now any foreign transaction being done through the credit card route will also be taxed. So let's try to understand more about this move and how it is expected to impact you. We have Mr. T P Oswal, who is the international tax expert, onto our show. Hi, very good evening, Mr. Oswal, and thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now. Firstly, how do you see this move, this credit card getting into the tax category, as well as 20% of TCS is being levied? Do you support this particular move by the government, or do you feel that it can't have an impact onto the demand because it is like taxing the riches? So what's your take on that?
See, this is nonsense to say this is taxing rich. It is taxing Aam Aadmi. Everybody has a credit card and a lot of people are traveling abroad. Now you at times even in foreign country, take a railway ticket through a credit card. You take a hotel, you go to the hotel, you pay in hotels also the credit card. Now international credit cards are available with everybody. Almost all the banks issue credit cards which are international credit card which you can use it abroad. So now to say that this is going to be only taxing rich is not correct. Now, for example, take a case like company like Infosys or HCL or TCS, who has a huge strength of employees working abroad. The company like TCS has 6 lakh employees, out of which 1.5 lakh to 2 lakh employees must be working abroad. Now, this company with a view to keep the policy, possibly, I don't know, but possibly we'll have to check up. The company may authorize the employees who are deputed abroad to spend the money first and then claim reimbursement based on their ability to given allowances given to each of the employee. So if that be the case, if the expenditure is incurred first by the employee and that expenditure is incurred on their own personal cards, and if the expenditures are incurred on their personal card and then that they take reimbursement from the employer, withholding tax takes place from their individual credit card. Unless the company gives them the corporate credit card. And the corporate credit cards are given only in few senior executives, not to all the employees. And therefore, if you incur the expenditure on the corporate cards given to you, the expenditure will be a business expenditure. There will not be any TCS at all. But if the employee incurs the expenditure out of their personal credit card and they take a reimbursement from the employer, there will be a huge loss, 20%, and then they will have to claim this 20% out of their taxable income on the return file, and then they take a refund from the tax department. So these are the practical difficulties. And it is not that small segment of the taxpayers which is going to be affected, huge number of employees going to be affected. Of course, those who are traveling abroad, those who are going for medical services, those who are going for education, and if they are incurring the expenditure through the credit cards, no doubt they will be liable for this 20%. Most of the Indian students who go abroad, they go and they have their credit card which is issued to them by their banks in India, and they use those credit cards abroad. If that be the case, then there will be a TCS also. Technically speaking, there should not be any TCS because they are non-residents. Once you become non-resident and you are allowed to use your Indian bank account and issued credit card by Indian bank abroad, you are allowed. Foreign exchange law permits that. So if that is the case, why should there be a withholding tax on that payment made by the credit card issued by Indian bank? So these are practical. This problem which the Reserve Bank of India is trying to resolve without any application of mind, just thinking that it's a magnanimous problem. What is the total amount spent on LRS? In last 10 years, the statistics shows we have around $300 billion gone from the country for the purpose of LRS. Per annum, therefore, it is not exceeding $30 billion. Our reserves are today $600 billion. We are talking not even 2% of that. And therefore, it's a chicken-hearted mind which has worked on such type of law and such type of difficult position, which is administratively going to be major issue. Let me give you another example. A husband is in India, wife is working abroad, or reverse. Husband is abroad and wife is in India. They have a joint account here. Wife is also working, husband is also working. And husband has joint account and joint credit card. Add-on cards are given. An Indian bank happily gives you the card, and add-on card is given to a person who has become non-resident. On both the card, the first holder's card, who is a resident Indian, and that card is used for making payment. Add-on card also makes the payment, foreign country, and that will be subject to TDS here, 20%, whereas no fault of the first holder's credit card held by him. So these are the difficulties which I think Reserve Bank should have applied the mind, should have consulted people, should have at least thought about the difficulties which are likely to arise. And I can tell you, you will be doing great human service if such programs are conducted through your the channel, so that people realize the difficulties happening with this particular circular.
Yes, a lot of difficulties and a lot of loopholes that, or rather a lot of clarifications that the industry experts are still waiting, like you rightly mentioned, that the differentiating between a business travel and a personal travel might be difficult, as well as there are a whole chunk of people who are now using the credit cards. But Mr. Oswal, while we have been talking to the industry experts, and especially those travel agencies who make the arrangements of your whole foreign travel, they have highlighted that in the past, when 5% of TCS was levied, it had no impact. It was a chatter for some time around. It got absorbed by the industry experts. So now, with 20% of TCS being levied, do you expect that there could be any impact on the demand?
Well, if you say that it is absorbed, even 20% will get absorbed. Reason being, that will be justification from the government. The government will say that I am deducting, I am asking you to collect tax at 20%, but this tax, we are giving you credit in your return of income. So you pay less advance tax. I can understand if I am a tax professional, sorry, if I am a professional and my tax is collected, I will get the credit in my return of income. But consider poor salaried employee who will be subject to TDS by the employer by calculating his total emolument for the whole year, and the tax is deducted at source. Again, in such cases, if the expenditure is incurred by them and for which he has claimed reimbursement from the employer, which is in foreign currency, then there will be 20% TCS. It means that he has to file his return along with that claim and wait for the refund. It means further funds are blocked. It is that poor class of society which is you are subjecting themselves difficulties and asking them to pay more and more money first to the government. And getting refund from the government is not difficult these days, because government has been very happily giving you refund. The moment you file the return, within a week's time you get a refund. The process has been expedited. Process is simplified, but the difficulties used to be in the past. So therefore, I am not going to say that this is difficult to get the refund. But why? My tax is not payable. Why should I be subject to further TCS provisions? And if this type of things happen, let me honestly tell you, if the government is given full liberty to do anything and everything, they will extend the area of TCS on number of other items also as well in the future.
Okay, but Mr. Oswal, there also has been a limit, because any foreign remittance or purchase made over and above a limit of $2.5 lakh would require a prior approval from the RBI. That is also something that is being talked about after the 20% levy of TCS. What's your take on, was this limit really required, and is this $2.5 lakh is justified, and how big a chunk of population this could actually impact with this kind of a limit?
Ask the first question. First part of the question is very relevant. The limit per individual is $250,000. There is also instances which have come up to the Reserve Bank of India's attention that people spend money through the credit card abroad and that they don't count in that $250,000, and there was no check and balance to find out how do we catch them. To if you have got a headache, you cut your head is the solution Reserve Bank of India has thought, which is not the correct way. You find out a mechanism, you stop the expenditure in this manner, and then you first of all you did not so far put the restrictions on TCS on the international remittances for payment by the credit card. All other payments are subject to TCS, which people have no problem. Even if suppose you would have taken 5% of TCS on this credit card payment to start with, people would have absorbed, thought that they will get a refund. The amount blocked is not very heavy. Normally, a person can spend at the most 10 to 15, 10 lakhs of rupees per annum on a foreign travel. A poor man will not spend more. So 5 lakhs to 5% of 10 lakhs of rupees will be hardly 50,000 rupees. He will get the refund when he files the return of income. If he is a businessman, he will pay that much tax lower, and therefore he will get the refund automatically at the time before filing return itself by way of an adjustment against the advance tax. But the process is so cumbersome. You have to keep track of it. A banker will have to deduct withholding TCS and pay to the government. They have to file the annual separate return. You will also have to report in your AS26. The report will come. There was a tax withheld by somebody. TCS has been withheld. So you keep track of it. When the government today has a mechanism of complete control over the digitization of everybody's transactions, all the transactions are tracked, and information system is so generated that people, before filing your return, all the information of all your transactions is thrown by the system on you, and you have to reconcile and file the return accordingly. Why should there be restrictions? Why should there be a mechanism like this? I think you should track your system. It means either you people are not working, the government believes that their employees are not working, and therefore you create mechanism of this nature so that you want to track. And apart from these normal systems which government has been using for tracking the taxpayer, there is also data analytics done by companies like Larsen Tubro Technology and other companies, which is doing on the private data of the transactions of various taxpayers. From that, they find out how much the transactions people have undertaken, how much TCS has been paid, how much TCS is required to be paid. Everything is available, total under scrutiny. So if the revenue officers are not willing to do the work, you are thrusting the job on the taxpayers and putting them into the difficulties. I think this is really with the present government, Mr. Modi's government. I thought that this will be a more simpler job than the earlier, and I'm sure the attention of Prime Minister must have not been drawn on this particular subject, and resolution on this subject is bound to come up in sooner than later. And I have confidence in this government that they'll resolve the problem.
Oswal, just a last couple of questions. Like you were mentioning that there is a lot needs to be done, but there's a lot of added burden when it comes to the consumer side, because they have to now go back and file their ITR with all those details they have to fill in. But do you see this as an added burdens of compliance with the other parties involved, such as the financial or the banking sector?
It is 100% additional burden on banking circle. It is 100% additional burden on the credit card companies and individual, no doubt, because he has to file his return by comparing all the transactions which are reported in AS26, and that will be his chartered accountant will spend a lot of more time on the filing of his tax return. So he will definitely ask more fees for filing his return, and that will be additional. And if you do not comply, there is always the threat from the income tax department that you have not done your job properly, why penalty should not be levied, why prosecution should not be initiated. Do you think that we have a number of Arthur Road type jails in India where you can put a lot of people in the jail for doing some small mistakes? And these are the days where we are seeing in practical way, in a day-to-day practice, such notices are issued rampantly without any application of mine.
Oswal, it was good to have your strong voice against the levy of this 20% TCS. But lastly, if I could just make this stage open and allow you to make your points or your views on what amendments, if at all possible, then what amendments would you like to recommend in this particular scenario of 20% TCS?
The Reserve Bank of India should come out with a clarity and say that this $250,000 limit will include all your expenditure incurred through the credit card. And therefore, please report the figures properly. And while spending the money, consider this $250,000, including the expenditure on the foreign traveler. And if suppose, including expenditure through the foreign exchange credit cards. So therefore, if that is introduced, 5% tax will be levied on that expenditure. So matter is resolved. People will comply. Today also people are complying. So they will stop bothering about it. So therefore 5% is a rational, and then the rational thing. And the Reserve Bank of India telling your limit of $250,000, which in my opinion was already there, was the interpretation. But if some people have misused it, punish them rather than punishing the whole nation with additional burden and additional process of law.
Okay, with this, we let you go on that front, Mr. Oswal. It was great to have you on ET Now, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was the whole discussion about wherein now going ahead, your foreign transactions are going to get expensive with the 20% TCS. Mr. Oswal is definitely not in favor of that. But with this, viewers, it's time to slip into a short break, but don't go anywhere. A very interesting conversation lined up on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.